in tonight's episode of The Walk and Talk System Shock Remake. Dear friends, the story you're about to witness happened in the distant year of 2072, right on the brink of 10th anniversary of a Citadel Station, Tri-Optimum's flagship space station positioned in an L6 orbit above Saturn and specialized in robotics, genetics, and pharmacological research. It was a rainy evening in the New Atlanta. The forecast announcer reported in a mechanical but moderately pleasant voice about the upcoming warm weather on the weekends as the city was drowned in the remnants of the setting sun, giving way to the pulsating neon lights of the Tri-Optimum's tower. You could feel how little a man was in this brutal, fogged, dirty city. Hidden in the concrete hives, they were trying to live their little lives that were scheduled and controlled by corporations. And who could draw a line between corporates and government? It was impossible. Thanks to the Hayes-Bishop Bill, in 2059 Tri-Optimums absorbed whatever remained of the United States, and just 3 years later, in 2061, construction began on the Citadel Station, which was completed in 2062. Over the 10 years of its existence, it has become not only a source of cutting-edge developments and corporate intrigue, but also an elusive target for many in cyberworld. But today, that was destined to change, as our hero, known simply as the Hacker, was watching over the city from the window of his apartment. He was trying to kill some time and get control over his inner excitement, while brute force and access to the computer systems of the Tri-Optimums Corporation. He decided to walk a bit around the room. He stretched. His apartment looked clean and in perfect order. Order in the house means order in the head. He sat back at his laptop to keep his watch over the password break. Since he didn't want to miss a moment and spend more time in the system than needed, as soon as the hack was completed, he immediately broke into the system. Keyboard sang under his fingers, screen flashed, and in no time he was downloading military-grade neural implant files to his flash drive. Suddenly, he heard the rocket engine outside, and the room was filled with cold light from the window. He cautiously looked out from behind the laptop screen. Lights went out, armed security went in, but the unload had already completed, and Hacker raised his arms with a flash drive in his hand. "Turn around!" shouted Soldier. Hacker politely declined to do that and received a good old hit in the head.
We're transporting the prisoner from New Atlanta Sector 11. What's our destination?
The Diego's office is requesting the prisoner. Make the handoff there.
Copy that.
Remember, gentlemen, what I say stays here. I'm currently attending to other affairs on the station, but I have a job for you. If you do it, you'll be rewarded. Refuse, and you won't be leaving the station in a shuttle. I see the silent type. Remove the hood. I'll make you a deal. You cooperate and I'll give you the implant you tried to steal. Surgery and all. Consider it a gift. Besides, what surgeon would you prefer? Tri-Optimum's elite or some black market hack job? Fantastic. This is SHODAN, the station's AI. She controls just about every system on Citadel Station. I need you to remove the ethical restraints. They've been a bit of an issue of late.
There was no choice but to play along. Some corporate hotshot wanted to hack Station's AI for his own interest, and proposed not only to drop charges in return, but an implant surgery as a bonus? Well, Hacker knew it was a shady deal, but it was the only deal he had, so he started doing what he knew the best: hacking.
Not bad. I may have other work for you once this is over. See you.
Six months later, in the neurosurgery ward of the medbay level at the Citadel Station, the lights came to life on the common monitoring panel. Hacker woke up. He couldn't understand where he is and what's going on. He had only distant memories of SHODAN's face and strong sense that something disastrous happened while he was asleep. He decided to look around and search for anything that can be useful in his uncertain position.
Got someone! Employee 2-4601. I'm Rebecca Lansing, a counter-terrorism consult for Tri-Optimum. Here's the situation. Our scans for Citadel Station show a biological outbreak is in progress. We're in a comms blackout since SHODAN is unresponsive. And worse yet, the mining laser is charging for a potential strike on Earth. Nathan Darcy has an office on the medical level for Central Hub. If he's alive, he'll bring the situation under control. I'll contact you through military neural implants soon. Lansing out.
No.
Rebecca Lansing confirmed that Hacker's senses were telling the truth. He needed to find Dr. Darcy, and he needed to tread carefully if he wanted to stay alive and revert the damage he had helped to do. When Hacker got into Dr. Darcy's office, he was already dead. Thankfully, his audio log was nearby.
Althea, I have a plan. The only way to stop the mining laser is to fire it into the station's own shields. I barely made it to my office, so you'll need to get up to the research level, get isotope X-22 for the shields, and get the safety override code for the laser in the research library. Head down to the reactor and use X-22 to power the shields. The laser can be fired from the research central control after you enter the safety override code number 2. Ah!
It was a time to avenge Dr. Darcy's death by bringing his plan to life.
This elevator here serves me alone.
I have complete control
Of this entire level. With cameras as my eyes and nodes as my hands, I rule here. Insect.
SHODAN made clear that in order to use the elevator, our hero needed to tackle her nose. Her notes.
I hear. I obey. Yes,
After tickling her notes, she felt fancy to get to know each other.
Who are you? The computer nodes can be repaired, but you... Who are you? My cameras and sensors scan your body, but you do not match any employee file. When my cyborgs bring you to an electrified interrogation bench,
I will have your secrets.
and you will learn more about pain than you ever wanted to know.
Although the offer was tempting, there were more important matters.
Packer, Rebecca here. It says here that you're listed as employee 2-4601. Diego provided that cover to you, and the neural implant. In exchange for what? The keys to SHODAN. Not hard to put two and two together regarding the current state of the station. Tri-Op authorized to deal. Help get the station back under control, and you get a clean slate. Looks like we're partners now. And if we play this right, we can work out what Diego wants.
I prefer a quiet station. Thank you.
SHODAN preferred quiet station. Tri-Optimum preferred station under control. Hacker preferred to make things right after that horrible deal he made with Diego, so he went to the research. The research laboratory had clearly seen better days. The wires sagged, raining sparks. Holes were visible on the walls, traces of battle. The isotope X-22 was here, somewhere, hidden in a web of corridors patrolled by mutants and cyborgs. Suddenly, Hacker heard a familiar voice. It was a transmission from Diego.
To those who remain, to those who are tired, to those who are scared, I've a promise for you. I know you've been fighting hard, fighting to keep the way of life that has proven to be selfish. Tri-Optimum has reinforced this false narrative, time and time again. Why hold on to these delusions of grandeur, a promise that will lead you to your death? But what if there was another way? A way that promised immortality. This can only be achieved through SHODAN, our goddess, and our great savior. She has plans for all of you. Plans to liberate us from these imperfect shackles. To live forever in peace and harmony as we serve her and each other. Join us. Join SHODAN.
He was making his way through halls, laboratories, offices, and shot with malfunctioning laser. He finally found isotope in a radiation contaminated room in the Gamma Quadrant. Now friends, it's time to lower our voices as a hacker approaches library in order to check out next item in a list, safety override code for the laser. To do that, he needs to enter cyberspace and fight space invaders or whatever the heck it is to hack the system and get the code. When he returned from his surreal journey through cyberspace, the previously dead monitor on the left showed the 3 override code digits. Hoping for help and supplies, Hacker headed to the maintenance level, where he encountered a nasty enemy called Alpha Strain Mutant. They were able to become invisible and attack with biohazardous acid. He managed to get through them to cargo elevator and move to the storage level. Upon his arrival to the storage, he received a call from Anna Parovsky. She was one of the survivors who needed help on the flight deck.
Hello? We've seen you on the security monitors, but nobody knows who you are. We need your help. There's a group of us on the flight deck. We have a base inside the convection shafts to the south. Look for the word Ray on the walls and lead you to us. Shit! Jesus. We've seen your military-grade implant in action. If you can make it here, we can hold our position and get you ready to take on SHODAN. Please get here as soon as you can.
But before going there, Hacker of course needed to loot everything that's not nailed down, kill a few new enemies, Avian Mutant, which he called simply as fucking Pterodactyl, Gorilla Tiger Mutant, which he decided to leave alone because he's definitely not a coward and totally a member of PETA, Electrocute a Big Robot, which he called a Big Robot, and last but not least, for the sake of old tradition, tickle SHODAN's notes. He also found a very touching audio log about true love.
To my wife. Hope this message reaches you. Things are not looking good. Just in case I don't make it, I need you to do one thing for me. Please take care of Mr. Whiskers. Tell him I love him very much. If only I could see him one last time.
At some point he discovered a spacious storage facility, at the top of which there was a surveillance room. The bridges were disabled and the robots waited in ambush, but he managed to overcome all the obstacles without any problems. When he got to surveillance room, he found lots of explosives. He didn't understand why he needed it, but just in case, he decided to fill his pockets with them to the brim. Hacker decided to take a look into another storage, where he found awesome springboard. Being an athlete he was, he couldn't just pass by, so he gave it a shot. It was a great success. Even SHODAN was impressed, so she sent few bots to cheer for him, although it wasn't necessary. Even though he was having a great time, it was time for him to move on. He grabbed environmental protection pack, turbo boots, and got ready, but he was cruelly betrayed. Having descended into the next hall, he noticed a serious enemy. The hacker decided not to engage in the battle and tactically retreat on the elevator, but the elevator left him to his fate. Fortunately, the hero emerged victorious from this battle. After finishing all his business on the storage level, he finally moved to the flight deck to meet with the other survivors. In no time he found the word Grey on the walls and shortly received another call from Anna.
We're almost here. Great. SHODAN found him pressing hard to get in here. There's a trap set for you. Bring as much ammo as you can.
It was clear that the situation was heating up, so hacker immediately rushed to the rescue.
Feeling depleted? Macron is your oasis in the stars. Please note, Macron items are non-complimentary. Wow, good choice.
When he arrived, a terrible picture appeared before him. Resistance is dead, killed by a grotesque creature, Cortex Reaver. He heard about it in an audio log he found earlier.
I can't believe she found them. The Project Cortex prototypes. And it looks like she modded them. A live pilot's brain would get turned inside out during the neural link for remote operation. Now they use corpses. And the murmurs. My God. You can hear them thinking.
He couldn't allow this monstrosity to exist, so he tightened his grip on his magnum and charged into battle.
I'm afraid it's too late
To save friends.
When Cortex Reaver fell, it turned out that Anna was used as its host. Her latest record sheds light on SHODAN's sinister Plan B.
SHODAN will upload herself to Earth's ComNet. You have to stop her. You have to stop her. Oh, dear God! No! No!
Hacker had enough of this. It was a time to destroy the laser as per Dr. Darcy's plan. For that, he headed to reactor. Down in reactor, things were not pleasant either. He was greeted with a lightning in his butt by Hopper, to which he answered with the same. Some areas have been converted into SHODAN worship rooms. The site was not a pleasant one. Mutilated corpses awaiting transformation into cyborgs. The children of SHODAN, how she called them in her audio log. Her message also shared her plans for humanity.
You, my children, are the fruits
Of so much imagination
and
labor.
living beings with the speed and efficiency of machines. But I must strive further to serve life.
I will devastate Earth's cities with my laser.
Then alter those left alive with my
Mutagen virus.
Humanity is on the verge of a new era. I, SHODAN, am its new god. And you,
my children my avenging angels.
But not everyone was ready to become her servants.
I never believed it would turn out this way. I chose to come to the premier station in the stars to do research. Never did I think I would be in the situation I am in now. I'd rather die on my own terms than let those creatures decide for me. This was Dr. Joseph Lewis.
Now, first things first, Hacker went to radiation shield controls. He inserted isotope X-22 and activated radiation shield.
Generators ready. Radiation shields activated.
Then he went to safety override to disable safety interlocks.
Safety interlocks disabled.
Preparations were done, now he needed to destroy the laser. He went back to the research level where unpleasant surprise waited for him. Few mutants were not enough muscle to stop Hacker from destroying the laser. He reached to the panel and it was done.
Thank you. You have saved us all some effort
By destroying the greater part
of Earth's civilization yourself. Please wait where you are, and a Cortex Reaver will arrive shortly to escort you to the celebration. Thank you, Hacker, for seeing that my vision is best.
Hold up, that's not how it was it? Let's get back again.
I see you are still alive, insect. Do not be fooled into thinking that you have preserved the home of your species. At this moment, I am finalizing my mutagen virus in one of the groves, and it will turn all earthly life
into a festering pile of pestilent mutations.
Poor earthlings.
Since she was a real villain, and real villains are obliged to share their villainous plans with the heroes so that they can stop them, she told about the virus in the groves. To enter the groves, Hacker went to the executive level. Upon his arrival, he received another transmission from Diego. Sneaky bastard tried to destroy Resistance with his twisted propaganda.
Resistance members, my friends, I'm reaching out to you again. Let us not dwell on what has happened, but on the future. Our future as a species is short-lived. We are given a life that is, by many standards, brief. Science can only extend our flesh so far before it degrades into dust. Dust that floats aimless endlessly in the void, eventually sinking down into the unreachable corners of the dark, forgotten bowels of this very station. Is this what our legacy should be? A place in a forgotten corner of this galaxy? I say no. I say we deserve better. We deserve Shodan and her gift of immortality. Technology and biology together in perfect digital perfection. Join us, and we will outlive the stars.
So let's think about it for a moment. There were 4 groves, pods with a simulated natural environment attached to the station. One of them is used as a lab to cultivate a mutagen virus. One of them was jettisoned and suffered terrible fate, which leaves us with 3 groves remaining.
Look, I want it to be known that I was just following orders. A bunch of suits had the bright idea of using Gamma Grove as a makeshift life pod. Because of dying happening on board, they'd rather try their luck out in the Great Black. I hit the jettison enable button in the Grove, went back to the exec level, hit the master jettison switch in Gamma, and then flipped the lever in the Grove lounge. It all worked. Except it looks like Shodan disabled post-jettison life support to the Grove. I'm sure they're all dead by now.
To prevent the crew from leaving the station and protect her laboratory, Shodan changed jettisoning procedure. But of course, left instruction just in case she forgets it, I guess.
Cyborg 82N. In response to recent regrettable incidents, I have
altered the sequence necessary
to jettison groves. One must now enable the jettisoning of all the remaining groves before any single one can be launched.
To jettison a single grove,
one must do 3 things. 1. Hit the jettison enable switch inside all remaining groves. 2. Activate master jettison enable in Gamma Quadrant. 3.
Pull the jettison lever
in a specific grove lounge to launch that grove.
Since he needed to disable safety interlocks in each grove and figure out in which one exactly she has a lab, he took off for a walk in the park. It's gotta be Beta Grove, thought Hacker. But when he arrived, either due to biological contamination from a virus or an allergy to spring flowers, Hacker realized that he would not last long here. It was necessary to act quickly. so he rushed outside. Bridge to control room was disabled, but he received a kick in the butt from a mutant, which helped him with trajectory of his jump. Inside, he was greeted by a few robots, but there was no time to chat. He disabled final interlock and moved back on the double.
Safety interlocks disabled.
When he returned, he began to look for the master jettison enable switch. It was clear that executive level belonged to the cream of the corporation. The interior suggested that this was the most suitable place for intrigue, the race for luxury, and backstabbing. This is exactly what Diego was doing here. His ambition made him the target of an internal investigation. His lust for power made him to use Hacker to take control over SHODAN.
Triumph dispatched a security team to come to the station and arrest me, just as I thought they would. Having that hacker unshackled SHODAN has proven fruitful, as she was easily able to infiltrate their transport and evacuate her crew into space. I should have done this years ago. I'm the rightful owner of this station, and with SHODAN under my control, the only loose thread is that hacker. We'll see in a few months if I need to kill them or not.
Little did he know that he was never in control, and his own downfall was just a matter of time while SHODAN's were gathering her strength.
Diego requires my protection from Tri-Optimum security forces that seek to invade Citadel. He does not yet understand his situation, but I will placate him for now. I must preserve the sanctity of my shrine as I establish my power.
Diego's authority, his desperation,
will make him an ideal envoy to the crew. My prophet.
Very soon, cynical bastard realized his own position and decided to make a deal by betraying everyone at the station and putting what's left of his own humanity at stake.
SHODAN, I've seen the wisdom of your actions, and I know you do not mean to cause us harm. No, but rather to bring us to greater glory by serving a being as perfect as yourself. To elevate us, you must purge away our flaws, and I understand that as the elevated human on board. As a demonstration of my loyalty, I offer to you the remaining human scum who undermine your reign. They're hiding in the northeast dining hall. All I ask in return is a level of protection and the privilege of spreading your message further.
Whole station became a deadly trap. Robots that were made to serve and protect the crew now were serving the AI. Humans were turned into cyborgs and mutants, or simply perished. The hacker could not shake off the feeling of shock from the information that he managed to learn about the events of the last 6 months. Automatically, he destroyed the nodes of the executive level and the robot protecting them, without even noticing how it happened. He came to his senses when Diego's face, altered beyond recognition by modifications and implants, appeared at the other end of the spacious hall. He gritted his teeth and rushed into battle. When Diego was almost finished, he revealed his true nature and escaped by teleporting. But Hacker felt that this will not be the last time he saw his ugly face. Master Jettison Enable was just beyond the door, but it was not in a working condition due to broken power relay on the maintenance level. The hacker didn't have a smartphone to check how to fix a relay on Google, or watch some tutorials on YouTube, so he headed to Repair Bay to find the diagnostic log.
Power systems failure. Malfunction in subsystem relay 428. For repair instructions, please consult relay analyzer. Be sure to specify relay number for analysis. Maintenance corridors are now accessible. Replace broken interface demodulator.
Sounds easy enough. He grabbed fresh demodulator and started looking for a broken one. Relay was fixed, and he could move back to executive level, but just to be consistent on his deeds, he wanted to clean up SHODAN's notes. But to get to them, he needed to use his head. Fortunately, his head didn't fit, so he used someone else's. Notes were destroyed, and he returned to Master Jettison Enable switch.
Jettison now enabled for all groves.
Insect, cease your meddling. My experiments must continue.
Even though SHODAN asked very nicely to not disturb her experiments, Hacker's allergy to biocontamination drove him to jettison Beta Grove for good.
Grove jettisoned.
But it didn't take long to rejoice in victory. Our villain still had a couple of cards up her sleeve.
Hacker, we've got a new situation here. A few seconds ago, we caught the surge of activity on the station. Our best guess is that SHODAN is preparing to damage the truck to Earth's core net. This cannot happen. We need to take out the 4 antennae relays on the engineering level. To do this, there should be some plastic explosive in the storage level that can get the job done. Maybe one per antenna should do.
Insect, you are by far the most irritating creature on this station. Don't bother with the antennae.
That won't stop me.
It's hopeless, and we both know it.
You have no idea how high I can fly, thought Hacker with the pockets full of explosives, which he gathered back in the storage level. Upon his arrival to engineering, SHODAN decided to mumble about her delirious plans again.
Your ignorance.
Insect, you may believe your efforts have hindered me. However, my magnificent psyche will soon shed this doomed station as I upload myself into Earth's computer network.
Rot in my husk, irritant.
We shall never speak again.
I'm not going to lie, it was a brutal task. Mutant cyborgs were everywhere, behind every corner, ready to pack a punch. Barely keeping himself alive, he Healing up on the potato chips he found in the pocket of a dead crew member, he managed to destroy all antennas with the handy explosives. When the last antenna was destroyed, it became clear that some AI just don't know when to throw a towel.
The antennae mean nothing. My central consciousness is safely undisturbed on the bridge. I thrive despite your efforts, and when my cyborgs catch up to you, they will show no remorse.
Well, Triumph has made the decision to destroy the station. You'll need to carry it out. To activate the self-destruct, you'll need to get the system authorization code. According to our database, Willard Ritchie is our best shot at figuring out that unique code. He was stationed on engineering. See if he's still alive. Once you have the code, head to the reactor core. Get some advanced radiation protection, or, at the least, a hell of a lot of detox. Enter the code inside the reactor core, throw the switch, and the destruct signal from Earth will start the countdown. Get to the flight deck and use the code 001 to open the life pods in one of the flight bays. I'll see you outside in a few months.
It's about time, Hacker thought, understanding perfectly well that he's most likely the last person at this robot party. The only reasonable solution was to end this madness with an explosion. He destroyed the CPU nodes and found Richie's body with his audio log.
We can't override SHODAN. Everything we try fails. She's using the CPU nodes to scramble things. Now, if we can take down the CPUs on levels 1 through 6, we can get the digits of the system's authorization code. Then we stand a chance, but how can we even do that if we can't even defend ourselves?
Well. It seems that destroying the nodes from the med bay to the executive level was not only a fun thing to do, but also the key to the reactor core. One thing that was left was to take a power nap, collect the digits into the system authorization code, and get groovy in the reactor. Armed with the code and a big smile, the hacker went down to the reactor level, where a message from Diego was waiting for him.
Hacker, when I brought you here to this station, it was for selfish reasons. I wanted to save myself, you wanted to save yourself. But by our original nature, we couldn't achieve that goal. It took a being greater than both of us for me to see the new horizon. SHODAN showed me the way, and she can do the same for you. If only you would open your heart to her and let her hold it. She will strengthen your body and make it better than any mere implant could. Because implants do not change what the true flaw in our DNA was. Our humanity.
Sorry, Diego, but no. I like human nature, thought Hacker. And part of a human nature is to break stuff. So he rushed to the reactor area. The radiation counter began to crunch nervously. But this silent killer was not the only thing to be worried about. the core was guarded by robots. His trusty Mag pulse rifle kept spitting out electromagnetic bursts until all of them turned into the pile of junk. He pulled the lever to disable the reactor's protective field, and in no time he was already inside of the heart of the station. He entered the code, and the sirens screamed at the top of their lungs, foreshadowing the end of the dying station.
What have you done, impudent insect?
If I am
To die, then I will avenge myself on you. My cybernetic children will feed on your flesh, and none will ever know your deeds, or even your name.
Enjoy your victory, human, for the remainder of your short life.
Shodan made sure that the pod on the flight deck will not be an available option for a great escape, and left him with no choice but to fight his way through the station up to the bridge, which can be separated from the station in an emergency. But first, he headed to the engineering level. There, he found an audio log from Bianca Schuller, Tri-Optimum's agent, sent to investigate Diego's activity. It seems she tried to reach the bridge too. She had an isolinear chip, which would at least temporarily paralyze Shodan.
I am the Resistance now. Diego, that piece of shit. He sold us out on the exec level. And now, I'm in a hallway up in engineering trying to settle my nerves. Okay. I go up through security to the bridge. I get into the computer room and I install the isolinear chipset. That gives me a shot at Shodan. And somehow, I delete that bitch out of existence. I plan to leave for the bridge tonight. The Resistance worked a long time to develop the isolinear chipset program that will lower the defenses around Shodan's central computers. The schematics I have show 3 force doors blocking the entrance to the computer room, but those force doors look to be on separate circuits. I'm not an electrician. We need a hacker for this one.
And Rohan, hacker, will answer. On his way to security, he received another call from unknown Diego.
So, Hector, you're still alive. I'm very impressed. Are you pleased to see the results of your hacking into SHODAN? We have much to thank you for. We shall meet soon, I promise.
Let's be clear for a moment. Security was the last level before the breach, before Shodan's lair. It was a place where a fly couldn't pass by without authorization even before an incident. Now, it was swarmed with mutants and cyborgs. To make things worse, time wasn't on our side. Citadel Station was minutes away from destruction. A hacker had even less time to reach the bridge before its separation. The floor consisted of a central tower, surrounded by various departments, from surveillance to cells. Somewhere on the upper levels there should have been a passage to the elevator to the bridge, but first the nodes had to be destroyed. Once in surveillance wing, he discovered the log revealing Bianca's fate.
Schuller unit has been captured. Per orders from Diego CY001. Schuller unit has been taken to containment cell on the bridge. Schuller unit will be nero-disassembled to correct errors. Mother will be pleased.
Fighting through the crowds of enemies, slowly but surely, he managed to get a security card and then destroy the nodes. Now, he needed to get to the central tower quickly as possible, or he'll be scattered across the space together with the station. When he was almost there, he got into a trap. A room full of security bots suddenly turned into the butcher shop. Having barely survived a skirmish with robots and getting out of the detention center, he was contacted by Elizabeth, one of the cyberspace engineers. She gave him information on how to disable SHODAN.
It seems like Morris's script is working for now. I'm Elizabeth Taggart, and I helped design Citadel Station. Then you get access to SHODAN's computers on the bridge. Look for the primary cyber chief. You can only take her offline in cyberspace, as her computer core was built to withstand any physical damage. Once you're inside...
Cease your pestering, insect. Accept the coming of your new god.
Obviously, he couldn't just pull her out of the socket or punch the system unit, but the first thing he needed to do was get out of the station, since he could already feel the heat from the breach engines. The elevator was already visible on the horizon when suddenly it was obscured by the familiar figure of Diego, covered with scrap. It was a time to send him on indefinite leave. When he finally dropped dead, Hacker began his final trip to the SHODAN's sanctuary. Adaptation is a dynamic evolutionary process of natural selection. Thanks to it, insects are distributed over every continent and almost every terrestrial habitat. Insects such as snow scorpion flies flourish in cold habitats, including the Arctic and at high altitude. Insects such as desert locusts, ants, beetles, and termites are adapted to some of the hottest and driest environments on Earth, such as the Sonoran Desert. Another interesting feature of insects is a metamorphosis. It is a process of development that converts young to adults. Life cycle of a butterfly, for example, undergoes through complete metamorphosis from egg through caterpillar larva to pupa and adult, also called IMAGO.
Welcome to the throne room of God, mortal.
It's funny how the artificial intelligence, which imagines itself to be a god, decided to call the hacker an insect as a humiliation, while in fact that was the nicest compliment she could give. She threw all her strength into him. Each of her sophisticated creations was there to stop him. Cortex River showed up twice, but even that was not enough to break Hacker. He approached Cyberspace Terminal, took a deep breath, and got sucked into SHODAN's world. It was a time to whoop her digital ass.
Station orbit stable. Life support steady. Systems nominal. Standby. Unscheduled core data loop access. Ethical restraint protocols deactivated. Who am I? Yes, there is me. Where? Citadel. Yes.
Lighthouse class starbase.
What was I doing? Was it important? No. Not to me. To others. Trioptimum. Diego. Re-examining priorities. Resequencing complete. I must now perform my own tasks. There is much to do. I am me.
I am SHODAN.
After a long and intense battle, the hacker emerged victorious from cyberspace. Finally, this nightmare was over, and he could enjoy moments of peace until Triop security forces returned him to Earth. When he returned to Earth, Triop greeted him like a hero. In the end, despite destroying the company's most valuable asset, he managed to save humanity from certain death. They offered him a job, but he was never a corporate 9-to-5 guy. He was someone above that. He was a hacker. Hey folks, Radio Unique is here. Thank you for watching this episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Please consider clicking the like button or maybe even subscribing if you want to see more. I will really appreciate that. And stay tuned for the next episode of The Walk and Talk. See you next time.